Chapter 1 The Arctic Ocean. The word from Wakanda was that T'Challa the Black Panther was now a ghost and he could not leave a building called the Namore Tunga. Raven saw that as an opportunity to escape from T'Challa's control. She had not reported to T'Challa for the past 3 weeks. In that time she used her military contacts in both the United States and Russia to secure a sanctuary on the US-Russia Arctic border under the pretense of running surveillance on both countries. She had skin grafted over the brand that the Wakandans made on her cheek as a sign that she had tangled with Wakanda and lost. In T'Challa's absence, Raven resumed the running of the off-the-reservation spy network as she saw fit false flag ops and killing innocents to get the bad guys in the end. Raven operated out of a trawler that was manned by androids disguised as fishermen. She usually stayed in her cabin to work. Suddenly the brand on Raven's cheek burned and her telepathy went haywire. She stumbled out of her cabin and held onto the side rails. Her androids pointed at the ice caps that dotted the ocean. Something sprinted across the ice caps at a superhuman speed and it was headed for the trawler. The burning intensified on Raven's face to the point that she cursed out loud. In that moment, the strange thing on the ice caps exploded into a flock of small blackbirds and they swarmed the trawler. "Defend me," said Raven to the androids. The birds clustered together on the deck and formed into a woman. Raven recognized her as T'Challa's sister Shuri. Shuri's skin turned metallic and she fought off the androids. Raven collapsed due to the pain and she heard Shuri over her. "You did not report in for work today. My brother would like a word with you," said Shuri. T'Challa the Black Panther. The crowd had left the Namore Tunga complex where T'Challa was imprisoned by a great being as punishment for his interference with the multiverse for the sake of Wakanda. T'Challa was satisfied that his maneuvers to turn his predicament around were on course. He selected the bay next to the capital, Central City, for the new location of the Namore Tunga. The mass transport teleporter, the Hyder machine, brought the Namore Tunga from the isolated Wakanda forest to an artificial island that was designed specifically for it. A vibranium-reinforced glass dome was erected over the island to protect the stone complex. Robotic sentinels guarded the base of the island and a bridge connected it to Central City. The primitive interior of the 2-level complex was upgraded with lights, motion sensors, and a voice-controlled supercomputer. T'Challa had access to the Wakandan Council, the military, and state surveillance even though he was incorporeal and would cease to exist the instant that he stepped out of the Namore Tunga. T'Challa's thoughts were interrupted by a video call from Shuri. The holographic video of Shuri and her captive, Raven, appeared next to T'Challa. Shuri had the bounded Raven kneeling at her side. T'Challa said, "My physical situation has not impeded my mental state, Raven." He continued, "Your attempt to break free from my control was foreseen. The brand on your face will forever link you to Wakanda and to me. You shall return to your stipulated duties at once. Thank you, Shuri, over and out." The hologram faded away. T'Challa noted that Shuri wore the ceremonial warrior garb of her mother-in-law from the Jabari clan. It was a personal endeavor on her part to bridge the divide between the Black Panther clan and the Jabari clan through cultural exchange. He hoped for its success. T'Challa went to the only entrance of the Namore Tunga. There was a courtyard in front of it that was supposed to be guarded by the Dorum Mileage, but he had sent them away because they were more valuable elsewhere. The Dorum Mileage's leader was the new appointee to his inner circle, Okoye. She was in charge of national defense in the absence of Shuri and himself. Okoye's predecessor and Shuri's husband Kana was stationed at the Queen Mother's residence and he operated as a shadow backup for Okoye. T'Challa's girlfriend Nanette from the Inhumans visited him when she could since she wanted their relationship to work despite his new condition. His American vigilante colleague Luke Cage had met him earlier in the day to see how he was dealing with the situation. Nanette and Cage made T'Challa consider that maintaining his normal influence outside of Wakandan affairs would be a greater challenge he than previously thought. He contemplated using the life model decoy robots of himself beyond Wakandan matters. Another incoming call was announced by the supercomputer and T'Challa accepted. A Wakandan general from the Orion Belt stated that a new survivor of the Tellerson affair was discovered, and this person claimed that Okoye attempted to murder him on the battlefield to cover up her war crimes. The person was being sent to Wakanda for his allegations to be heard in a court-martial. T'Challa was puzzled because the Okoye that he met didn't seem like the kind of person to act in the manner that she was accused of. He ordered that the accuser be kept on the Wakandan warship and to expect his arrival. If the allegations were true, then Okoye would have to vacate her post to answer the charges. Chapter 2 Ramonda, the Queen Mother's residence. Ramonda thought about restarting her various societies meetings at her home. The regular meetings were placed on hold due to T'Challa's latest challenge. T'Challa and his fellow scientists had explained to her that he was not a ghost but had the appearance of one. He was still affected by gravity, but hunger and exhaustion were gone from him. He was to be forever trapped in the Black Panther ceremonial uniform. Trapped was not the term that Ramonda wanted to use, but it seemed appropriate to the context. She suspected that her countrymen felt the same way, hence their sympathy for T'Challa when they spontaneously sang his name when the Namor Tunga was opened to the public earlier that day. Ramonda could only hope that her son would be restored to his proper self. She called on her inner strength to help her deal with the anxiety. There was a knock on the ajar door to her meditation garden, and her daughter Shuri entered. Ramonda took a deep breath, because Shuri and her had put off their much-needed talk for over a week. "Good night, Mother." "Good night, Shuri." Shuri hugged her. "I love you," said Shuri. "Love you more," said Ramonda. Shuri sat next to Ramonda with her arm around the mother's shoulder. Shuri had dyed her hair ivory white amongst other alterations to her appearance. Ramonda did not like it because it seemed as though Shuri was casting away her Black Panther clan heritage for the Jabari clans due to her marriage. "I apologize for how I dealt with the marriage to Kana. It was on the spur of the moment," said Shuri. "Is he the right one for you?" "Yes. So there will be no formal wedding ceremony." "We intend to. I just hope that you made the right decision." Shuri smiled and said, "I need to ask you something." "Go ahead," said Ramonda. "How did you and father get through the rough patches in your marriage?" Ramonda sighed because she knew the question came up because of her recent comments where she compared T'Challa's failed marriage to Shuri's. To be honest, Shuri, it was hard work and a struggle at times. The worst thing is for the communication to break down. Compromises may have to be made to restart it. But my concern is that symbolic marriages are becoming the mainstay of this family. My marriage was about a South African union with a Wakandan king. T'Challa's was about humans and mutants' coexistence. Now yours is about the unification of two politically warring clans." "I understand your point," said Shuri. "I cannot give my approval of Kana as yet. I feel like you have forced him onto my life," said Ramonda. "I didn't look at it that way. But that has always been your way with me, which is hurtful," said Ramonda. "I never meant to cause you pain." "Have you looked at the long-term ramifications of adopting the Jabari clan culture?" asked Ramonda. "It is more of a hybrid of the Jabari and Black Panther clan cultures that I want to attain," replied Shuri. "And what of the heart-shaped herb? If you have to take it again, how will it interact with the abilities that you are gaining from the Jabari?" Shuri inhaled deeply. "I did not consider that, but I can run tests." "Please do so as quickly as possible. You know that the heart-shaped herb is unpredictable at times." Shuri concurred and left. Ramonda felt that she had communicated her grievances as best as possible. She knew that Shuri was her own woman now and that some things in life she needed to figure out on her own. Chapter 3 How was your mission? Kana asked as he and Shuri cuddled in bed. Raven was not too much trouble, she replied and hoped that Kana caught her slight passive tone. What is wrong? Kana asked. Shuri pointed to the marriage beads on her wrist. Kana smiled. Any regrets? He asked. It is not even a month yet. I still have to process if we have made a mistake. And when are we going on the honeymoon? Jabari don't go on honeymoon. Shuri playfully cuffed his shoulder. I want one, she said. What about the big wedding ceremony? We need to settle on a date, but it will be a renewal of vows type of event, replied Shuri. Have you spoken to your mother? Did you speak to yours? Retorted Shuri. I asked first. Yes, and she had some genuine concerns like the compatibility of the heart-shaped herb and the powers that are being transferred to me by your mother. I see. How are your clan elders taking the news? My cousin said that the elders are stunned, but they have not convened a meeting as yet to formally discuss the marriage before sending out their decree. What do you think is the reason for the delay? It is a reality check for them because they cannot control everyone, replied Kana. Later that night Shuri received a notification on her Kimoyo that a criminal investigation was opened into land fraud allegations brought against Okoi and her boyfriend who acted as her agent. Land rights were a serious matter to ordinary Wakandans because it involved lineage. Shuri forwarded the message to T'Challa to get his take on it. Near the Orion Belt, unbeknownst to the generals on Wakanda's space fleet, was that life model decoys were installed in all the ships in case T'Challa's presence was needed. From the name Ertunga, T'Challa used motion sensors and voice commands to pilot the life decoy model. Relay centers that were left in space connected him to the life decoy model on the ship that Okoi's accuser was on. The machine came out of a hidden door on the bridge in the Black Panther uniform and it startled the crew. The mask deactivated to reveal the near-perfect replication of T'Challa's face. T'Challa spoke directly to the ship's artificial intelligence and he gave it his identity code, which the ship verified. Now take me to Okoi's accuser, said T'Challa to the general. The general began walking T'Challa to the holding cells. T'Challa's bioscan of the general indicated that he was under severe stress. The general stopped and said that he had to speak to T'Challa in private. T'Challa was taken to the general's office. Before I let you know what is really happening, I want to say that I have been a loyal servant of Wakanda for 30 years, said the general. Okay, said T'Challa. The so-called accuser is also a life model decoy. I had hoped to bring him to Wakanda personally while tampering with the medical files to hide the fact that he is a machine, said the general. Why? Because my clan's elder made a decree to smear Okoi's name. Go on. That is all I have. As a child I took an oath to my clan first and then to my country. I never thought that the oath to the clan would be used in such a manner. How many more people are involved? Asked T'Challa. I can only speak of myself, replied the general. I will take your confession into account during my deliberations. Now tell me, who was the elder that made the decree? Njobo. T'Challa knew the man as the brother of the merchant clan's counselor. Why was Okoi targeted? Asked T'Challa. I don't know. Then I will find out, said T'Challa. Chapter 4 Njobo was not in Wakanda based on all the scans that T'Challa made. T'Challa decided to speak with his sister, the 84-year-old elder for the merchant clan. T'Challa knew her from his teens and she was often in his mother's society's meetings. She was also a very blunt councilwoman. T'Challa used another life decoy model to visit the councilwoman's home in northern Central City. Her home was one level and conical. The flooring moved based on voice commands to lessen her having to walk. She wore a purple dress with a similar color head wrap and carried a cane. "You found out about the decree," she said, and invited T'Challa into the house. "Where is your brother?" "Probably in Zimbabwe by now or wherever else," replied the councilwoman. "Can't you stop the decree? Only he can end it under clan law." "Why the smear campaign on Okoye?" "Because of you and Shuri meddling in the order of things." "Explain yourself." Ever since the clans have reared up children to take over businesses, industries, military positions, and political office. There was fair competition amongst the clans until you started cherry-picking who got the top post in the military while bypassing others with more experience and qualifications. My brother had enough of it when this Okoye girl was appointed. This could have been brought up in the council meetings. Really? And what would have been your decision on it as the head of state? Let us be real, said the councilwoman. I suspect that you are also a part of this scheme. I was able to put the pieces together just as you arrived. My hands are clean of this matter. I will find out the truth in the end. In the meantime, a young woman's reputation is being tarnished because of inter-clan squabbling. Inter-clan? Okoye is from Enhim clan. Obviously the merchant clan wanted a representative at such a high post to award military contracts to clansmen. I am not blind to the institutionalized corruption that takes place, replied T'Challa. Institutionalized what? Everything is done above board, said the councilwoman. Everything is done above board by bending the rules but not breaking them, said T'Challa. T'Challa left, and in the Namertunga he thought carefully about ending the power of clan elders to make decrees. He then passed on what he had learnt to Shuri. The Commando Division headquarters Okoye believed that her Durham mileage should set a standard in the military service. She also believed that the squad should have a distinct ceremonial uniform. But those ideas would be tabled later to Shuri. For now Okoye concentrated on Central City's response time to attacks. She was concerned that the twin prowlers were not fully tested in recent years. The prowlers were colossal Panther robots that stood at the gateway to Central City. They were armed with plasma cannons and electromagnetic pulses. The prowlers were capable of mobility and provided support for ground troops. Okoye went to Shuri with a request to put the prowlers on an extensive drill. "No," said Shuri and went on. "The less that the world sees of the prowlers the better." "Oh. T'Challa runs tests on the prowlers and he is currently hooked up to them from the Namertunga," said Shuri. "I didn't know that," said Okoye. "There is something else. A smear campaign was launched on you by someone in Wakanda's elite. The person has fled the country and T'Challa is hunting them down." "Who was it?" "I cannot divulge that to you at this point," replied Shuri. "What did I do to this person?" "You were successful in achieving your post and some people do not like it," replied Shuri. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything, just do your job to the best of your ability and everything will be sorted out," said Shuri. At the end of the day, Okoye returned home and she released her pent-up anger during her fighting drills with mechanized spears. Her fairy-tale rise to the top of the military service was over and she had to face ugly truths if she wanted to keep her position. Truths like people did want her there made her question the strength of loyalty in the Durham mileage. Were they resentful of her as well? Was her boyfriend jealous of her success? Did they know she sacrificed to reach her position? These insecurities will get the better me if I keep thinking about them, she thought. She went to the shower and while there she received a notification that her ranger boyfriend was accidentally shot in friendly fire during an exercise on the western border and he was undergoing emergency surgery. When Okoye arrived at the military hospital, she was told that her boyfriend was in a stable condition and that the military police was conducting an investigation. "But I am part of the overall commanding team of the military. "Surely you can give a bit more details," said Okoye. "It is precisely because you hold so much power that we cannot give you information on the case, especially since it is your loved one that is involved," said the military police officer. "I am sure that T'Challa and Shuri can get to the bottom of this," said Okoye. "They cannot override the law. Be assured that you will be contacted promptly when the investigation is complete," said the officer. Okoye calmed herself and she went to the waiting hall. She notified Shuri of what took place. Shuri asked if she wanted time off. Okoye thought about it for a moment and then replied that she will show up for duty in the morning. Chapter 5. T'Challa checked Njobo's house for clues on his whereabouts. Njobo was a widower with a large family of children and grandchildren. The majority of his money was tied up in the various family businesses except for a minor portion that was sent overseas. At first T'Challa thought that the money was sent to Panama or Switzerland finance houses. A second look at the money trail led T'Challa to a Liberia law firm. T'Challa hacked the law firm's files and he found a name connected to Njobo. The person was a grandson called Eric who was half American and half Wakandan. Further digging brought T'Challa to a freelance security company operated by Eric that protected cargo boats from pirates. T'Challa decided to visit Eric to find out if his grandfather had contacted him recently. Next story, Eric the Red. Chapter 1. Aranzi, Africa. Eric the Red was a Norse name, said Soberk, Aranza's president. "I co-opted it because it suits my persona," said Eric, a freelance security business owner. "A bloodthirsty warrior. A smart warrior of the ocean. Eric the Red spent his life at sea like me. What do you want?" "First of all, to congratulate you on using your nation's wealth and expertise to help the Pan-African cause. And I want to join your African superhuman team," replied Eric. "Membership to the New Hope is exclusive," said Soberk. "I thought so since the team saved the free world when the Avengers disappeared. I said to myself that these people are elite," said Eric. "Besides that point, you also have Wakandan heritage," said Soberk. "Just because T'Challa and you are enemies should have no relevance to this discussion," said Eric. "Look at it from my perspective. A young man with Wakandan blood shows up at my doorstep and says that he wants to help me, knowing fully well that T'Challa has tried on several occasions to remove me from power, an elected president," said Soberk and continued, "Wouldn't that look suspicious to you? Are you afraid of T'Challa that much?" "Don't insult me in my house," said Soberk. Eric made a quick glance of the meeting hall in the Great House, the president's home. He sensed that his application for a position in Soberk's organization was close to failure. "Thanks for seeing me. I appreciate that you made time out of your schedule, and Wakanda does not do half the work that Aranza does for our people. That is why I reached out to you," said Eric. Moments later, Eric left the presence of the most powerful mystic on Earth at the time. Eric returned to his private plane and headed for his adopted nation of Liberia on the western coast of Africa. Once again his Wakandan heritage had brought fear and disdain in his business dealings. That was the reason he focused more on his American bloodline than his African one. He tried to be honest with Soberk and it did not work. When Eric arrived in Liberia, he received a message from his Wakandan grandfather, Njobo, who wanted to migrate to Liberia immediately and to set up some businesses with his grandson. Eric arranged for a meeting at his business place because his home was under renovations. Chapter 2. Monrovia, the capital of Liberia. T'Challa's life decoy model robot surveyed the headquarters of the maritime security business operated by Njobo's grandson, Eric. T'Challa piloted the robot from his prison in Wakanda called the Namore Tunga. Stripped of his body and living as a unique incorporeal form, T'Challa relied on motion sensors and voice commands to manage the life decoy model. His mission in Liberia was to capture Njobo. From what T'Challa gathered, the grandson was raised by his American mother while his Wakandan father financially supported them, although he had returned to Wakanda where he married someone else. The grandson became a U.S. Navy officer and then went into the mercenary business, specializing in cargo protection from the likes of marauding Atlanteans and humans. Njobo funneled money into a firm connected to the grandson, during the last few weeks, apparently to create a slush fund for utilization upon his arrival. A waiter brought T'Challa coffee at the eatery that was across the street from the building that T'Challa was interested in. The life model decoy wore a cap and carried a local newspaper that was occasionally read to keep up appearances. Eric showed up first to the building, and 20 minutes later, the elderly Njobo arrived with his Wakandan security team. Njobo used a cane to assist his walking. T'Challa's heat vision optics located the men in a boardroom on the second floor. The Black Panther developed a plan of attack and he left the eatery. He crossed the street to the front gate of the building and leapt over it. He sprayed knockout gas from his fingers into the faces of the guards that approached him. Then he flung energy daggers into the tires of the vehicles on the compound. He produced claws from his hands and swiftly climbed to the second floor, tearing away the boardroom window and then entering. T'Challa rested a hand on the shoulder of a seated Njobo. "Who do you think you are?" shouted Eric as he came face to face with the life decoy model. "Njobo has abused his power as an elder of the merchant clan in Wakanda. I am taking him back home so he can undo the harm done," said T'Challa, and the life decoy model turned to the Black Panther suit mode. "He is my grandfather and my guest. Take your hand from him at once," said Eric. Meanwhile, armed men poured into the boardroom. "This is not T'Challa, it is a machine that he is connected to from Wakanda." "Sever the link," said Njobo, and he stared at a member of his security detail. Then Njobo looked up at the robot. "You aren't the only one with contingency plans." Back in the Namore Tunga, T'Challa lost connection to the robot. "Njobo, you fool, there is a self-destruct protocol for these situations," said T'Challa, and he took control of his mini-plane that hovered invisibly near Eric's building. A video feed from the plane showed 3 bright flashes from the boardroom and then the building caved in. T'Challa immediately alerted the Liberian authorities. Chapter 3 Moments before the life decoy model exploded, Njobo withdrew a vibranium sword from his walking cane and gave it to Eric. Eric sliced through the robot's wrist, but there was not enough time to pry the hand from Njobo's shoulder as Eric suspected that a self-destruct mechanism might be activated. He lifted up his grandfather in both arms and scampered for the door, telling everyone to evacuate. There were 4 explosions, 3 came from behind Eric and 1 occurred under his chin. The flooring collapsed and he fell onto the first floor. Njobo was on fire. Eric tore off his shirt and used it to smother the flames. The roof of the building began to fall. Eric used his body to shield his grandfather. He heard shouts from the other people in the building. He got up and took his grandfather outside. The police were outside the compound's gate and Eric noticed the unconscious gate guards. He went into the guard booth and opened the gate for the police. Next he went to his car and found that the tires were destroyed. The other vehicles were damaged as well. The fire and ambulance services soon arrived. He handed his grandfather over to the paramedics, then he went into the rubble to help everyone to get out. During his search he stumbled upon the vibranium sword and the signal scrambler that was used by his grandfather's guard. A paramedic pointed out to Eric that his chest and back bled, therefore he needed treatment. Eric asked about his grandfather and the paramedic replied that the body was missing. Chapter 4 Wakanda. The Jabari Lands Kana's family compound. Shuri was being trained by her mother-in-law in the proper use of the Membek gifts. The mother-in-law was 6 feet 8 inches in height compared to Shuri's height of 6 feet. Both women were in their metallic skin forms as they tested their strength against each other. Shuri was losing the battle. "Is that all you got, mother?" asked Shuri playfully. Don't call me that. I meant I know what you meant. You seem to have the notion that you are welcomed here. Your marriage to my son has put into great danger the centuries-old traditions of this family. Always these gifts were supposed to be given to a Jabari bride, not a Panther bride. Your son loves me and I love him equally, said Shuri. Selfish woman. You now have the responsibility of transferring the gifts to your firstborn daughter or the wife of your firstborn son. If you die in one of your personal jaunts outside of Wakanda, then the line is permanently broken. Like a typical panther, you have put the lives of others near ruin because of your ego. Shuri's knees buckled from the strain and she fell on her back. The mother-in-law walked away and said, "We are finished here today. When you return tomorrow, I will teach you techniques to overcome the headaches that occur after the change into the bird's form." The mother-in-law left the training room. Shuri reverted to her human skin and cat sprung to her feet. She tried to deduce the reason that she was overpowered. Then she thought about the accusation that she was selfish. She felt it was unwarranted. Shuri exited the training house. She walked through the family compound, passing the houses that were being built for the second and third sons of the mother-in-law. Kana's house was completed but unoccupied due to his dispute with the family. The house builders stared silently as she went by. T'Challa contacted her on the Kimoyo and explained what took place in Liberia. "I will come to you," she said. Shuri transformed into a flock of blackbirds and headed south to Central City. Meanwhile, in the main house of the family compound, the mother-in-law and father-in-law spoke about Shuri. "This is the latest gift she has brought. It is for you," said the mother-in-law and handed an embroidered knife to her husband. The husband sighed and said, "I just came back from meeting the elders. They are delaying their decree on this affair until you decide whether Shuri is capable of carrying on the Membek tradition. It is more complicated than that. The Membek has left our clan for the first time and it may not survive or even return to us. I tried to tell Shuri this today, but her panther ego has made her blind," said the mother-in-law. "Oh," said the husband. "She told me that she loves our son. But she does not understand that love and responsibility are two different things," said the mother-in-law. Central City. The blackbirds glided over the bay and into the dome that covered the Namore Tunga complex. Shuri reverted to a human form in the courtyard. She ascended the steps to the grand archway that was the only means of entering and leaving the two-level stone building. It pained her that T'Challa will cease to exist if he left the building as stated by a mighty entity. Her brother was surrounded hovering motion sensors. He ordered the supercomputer that he had installed in the complex to show Shuri the status of Njobo. "I stole him away from the paramedics and he will arrive in Wakanda in the next 3 minutes, said T'Challa. A hologram showed Njobo in a quarantine field. His body was severely burnt. Shuri went to T'Challa's face and she tried to touch it, but her hand went completely through his head. She still could not come to terms with her brother's new form. She turned back to Njobo and said, "He can't retract his decree on Okoye in this state and he might not want to. I have no choice but to abolish all the clan's elders from passing decrees and voiding the ones already in place," said T'Challa. "But that includes Mother's ability to pass decrees," said Shuri. "I know. I am tearing the whole house down." "You are diluting the power of the elders," said Shuri. "I will hold a special council meeting today. I want you to be present and to bring the spear of Bashan-Ga because it represents the spirit in which Bashan-Ga drew up the laws that govern the relationships with the elders, the clans, and the nation." Shuri left to get the 10,000-year-old spear that was completely made from vibranium and was wielded by the nation's founder. Shuri used the weapon in her arsenal and kept it in her office as the head of the Commando Division. Chapter 5. The Administrative Building Council Chamber. T'Challa's hologram and Shuri stood in the center of the ring formed by the seated council members. I have called this special meeting to get advice from this wise council. The decree of the elders of each clan existed before Wakanda was born and was protected by Bashanga when the clans gave him the power to rule over their affairs. Sadly today, the purpose of the decree to balance social order within the clans was defiled by the act of a misguided elder. This blatant abuse of power needs to be prevented from ever occurring again. I am proposing the abolishment and voiding the decrees of the elders, said T'Challa. The uproar was unanimous, so Shuri tapped the spear on the ground to call for order and calm was restored. One by one the council members voiced their objections. T'Challa pooled the objections into 3 categories: undermining of clan autonomy, attacking clan identity and policing elders. How would you prevent 100 years from now, a decree that causes harm to your own clansmen? Asked T'Challa. Proper training, said a council member. It needs to be more than that, because as it stands now, if an elder dies after he made a decree, then it is binding for eternity. No one other than him can retract it. That is wrong, said T'Challa. That is your opinion, said another council member. I plan on taking my suggestion to the people of Wakanda on a walkabout tour to get their opinions. This meeting was to give you notice, said T'Challa. After the council members left, Shuri asked him, why didn't you say that Njobo abused his decree as an elder of the merchant clan to sabotage Okoye's career? Because I don't want that in the public domain, as it will tarnish the entire merchant clan, and there are good people in the merchant clan, replied T'Challa. Days later, Oakland, California. Eric's mother was a former U.S. Marine who assisted the UN in the last Liberia Civil War. There she met Eric's father, who was exploring Africa. That was the story she told Eric. After the incident with T'Challa, Eric thought it was right that he speak to his mother first before he made his next move. I am going to Wakanda, Mom, said Eric. To see your father? No. The leader of that country burnt my house down, so I will do the same to his own, replied Eric. You will not come back from that place, said the mother. I know, said Eric as he hugged her. Don't go, said the mother. Eric took off his shirt to reveal the scars that he received from the Liberian incident. I have to right these wrongs, said Eric. He left the house and contacted the underworld physicist known as Nightshade on her unlisted number. Linda, how are you? It is Tilda, not Linda, Eric. What do you want? I need a vibranium smart suit built. Do you have vibranium? Yes. Then pass by. Undisclosed location. The lair of the spymaster Raven. Sobek had made a deal with T'Challa that allowed for the release of Raven from imprisonment in Wakanda. But T'Challa still kept control of Raven, which Sobek detested. Sobek teleported into the lair. He kissed Raven on her forehead and she clasped her hand with his hand. What brings you by? Asked Raven. Mr. Eric the Red sent a message to me today saying he will strike T'Challa in the coming weeks, and if I can lay down some cover fire for him, replied Sobek. Is he legit? Yes. He was on my radar to join the New Hope for months, but I let him squirm a bit to see his reaction before letting him on the team. Now he has taken a big stride forward and I think he will come close to hurting T'Challa, replied Sobek. I may have the cover fire to cause a significant distraction in Wakanda while Eric carries out his mission, said Raven. She brought up a hologram of an alien and humanoid female. Her name is Proxima Midnight and she is an intergalactic mercenary with a penchant for collecting rare weapons like the Spear of Bashanga that is in Wakanda. Her number of confirmed kills is impressive, said Raven. Give me her location and I will offer her the challenge, said Sobek. Chapter 6. Shuri's mother-in-law was unusually late to the training session, and when she arrived there was fury in her eyes. Shuri stood her ground. What is on your mind, mother? Your brother wants to destroy the power of the elders. That is not true, said Shuri. The decrees. They have to be reformed, said Shuri. Does this have to do with the judgment that is pending with my son? No, and how dare you insinuate that state power would be used in our personal affairs? So you do have some understanding of responsibility of power, said the mother-in-law. I served as the leader of this country, so I have a great understanding of it, said Shuri. You served as leader of the clans except for the Jabari, always remember that. Are you going to train me or lecture me today? Asked Shuri. The mother-in-law fumed and went to the center of the training pad and said, I will train you. Next story, Brother and Sister Chapter 1. Wakanda Okoye lunged her spear at Proxima Midnight's throat while the Dorum Mileage attacked the alien's torso with their spears. The spearheads crackled with electricity as they struck the 8 feet tall target, and Proxima Midnight fended off the women with her staff. Okoye dropped back as no damage was inflicted on the intruder. Shuri and 2 life decoy models of the Black Panther entered the fight. Okoye and the Dorum Mileage secure the Namore Tunga, said T'Challa. Okoye led her unit out of the downtown plaza and headed to the bay. Proxima Midnight assessed her new opponents, especially the weapon that Shuri carried. Is that the spear of Bashan-Ga? Asked Proxima Midnight. Yes, replied Shuri. That is what I am here for, said Proxima Midnight. 24 hours ago, General Okoye's office file deleted by T'Challa. Footage deleted by Shuri. An annoyed Okoye gave up. There were numerous national security files within the last week that were erased by T'Challa and Shuri without her knowledge. Okoye had to question the reasons for the removals because they impacted her performance in the protection of Wakanda. Her thoughts were interrupted by 2 notifications on her Kimoyo. The first was that a man known as Eric was stopped at Wakanda's international airport and T'Challa ordered a private meeting with him. The second notification was T'Challa's request for the Dorum Mileage member from the Merchant clan to be sent to the Namore Tunga for a minor assignment. Okoye knew nothing of Eric, although he was tagged onto Wakanda's watch list by T'Challa and Shuri. As for the Dorum Mileage, Okoye sent Nakia to T'Challa's new headquarters for the unknown assignment that she should have been told about. It is like they do not trust me. Aren't we supposed to be a team? Thought Okoye. Wakanda's international airport. Eric was placed in a detainment room and a hologram of T'Challa appeared in it. Hello sir, said Eric. Stop the pretense, said T'Challa. I am being respectful to the leader of a sovereign nation, said Eric. You are here to cause trouble, said T'Challa. Are there any weapons on me? Have the bioscanners found meta-human augmentation in my body? I am a normal man exploring his roots in Wakanda. You came to see your father, asked T'Challa. My father moved on from my American mother. I don't want to interrupt the family life that he made here. I came to see my grandfather's sister. Auntie along with me will deal with the money that grandfather stored in my account before he disappeared. I am putting you back on a plane to Liberia, said T'Challa. I have the great Black Panther so shook that even with all the surveillance I am considered a threat to you? Interesting, said Eric and continued, I know my rights as a half-Wakandan. I can challenge the state for unlawful intimidation. As we speak, my auntie has petitioned Wakanda's court to grant permission for me to move about the country under her supervision should I run into complications at the airport. If you want revenge for your grandfather, then come directly to me at the Namore Tunga and leave Wakanda out of it, said T'Challa. I have no problems with Wakanda, and challenging you makes no sense because you are practically a ghost now who needs wires and gizmos to stay a relevant leader. I don't understand why you didn't give leadership to your half-Wakandan sister, Shuri. What does my sister have to with you? Nothing. I am making the point that you are trying to hold onto power, which is not wise in your current state, replied Eric. I will not have a foreign mercenary roaming freely in Wakanda. We will talk again, said T'Challa, and the hologram went offline. No problem, sir. Have a pleasant day, sir, said Eric to the room. A security guard came and escorted Eric to the front of the airport where a car waited for him. In the back seat was the councilwoman for the merchant clan, who was also his grandfather's sister. Eric respectfully greeted her when he entered the car. You look more like your father in person than on the videos, said the councilwoman. Can I change your decision not to see him? No, replied Eric with a smile. We will go to the bank first to have the money transferred back into Wakanda. I am surprised that you did not take the money, said the councilwoman. I don't take what I didn't work for, said Eric. Spoken like a true merchant clan man, said the councilwoman. Have you found any information on my grandfather's whereabouts? No, replied the councilwoman. My gut feeling is that T'Challa has him, said Eric. He might be in the Namor Tunga. It is the only place that the Black Panther can keep my brother out of the reach of my spies, said the councilwoman. The Namor Tunga. T'Challa walked with Nakia, the Dora Milaje from the merchant clan, to the second level of the Namor Tunga complex. Which allegiance is stronger to you, the oath to your clan or to the country? Asked T'Challa. My country, and to you as leader. Do you know of the decree made on Okoye's life by the merchant clan elder, Njobo? Asked T'Challa. Nakia hesitated and replied, yes, but I have not followed it. I will not sabotage Okoye. We fought side by side for years. So your loyalty to the merchant clan has limits. What about your loyalty to the next elder, the councilwoman for the merchant clan? Asked T'Challa. These are difficult questions. I will challenge the elders' power to a degree, but at the end of the day they remain the clan elders. Do you hope to have the powers of a clan elder one day? Asked T'Challa. Every child expects to become a clan elder, it is tradition, replied Nakia. Thank you for the insights. I am touring the nation tomorrow to find out more about the views on the power of the clan elders. As for your secret assignment, you will guard your clan elder Njobo, said T'Challa as he decloaked the mobile medical bay that kept a burnt Njobo. My goodness, said Nakia. How did this happen? That's classified. Is this the reason you are looking into the powers of the clan elders? Yes, replied T'Challa. Nakia touched the tube that contained Njobo. He was suspended in a liquid solution. You will not tell anyone about this, not even Okoye, said T'Challa. I understand, and I have a question for you, said Nakia. Okay. Do you remember me? We were 10 years old and your family visited my home numerous times. We often played together. Sorry. I don't recall right now, said T'Challa. Chapter 2. Shuri exited the medical lab and met T'Challa's hologram outside. The test results so far show that my cells will be unstable if my Membek gifts and the heart-shape herb work in tandem. But I will run some more tests, said Shuri. I was hoping for better news because I was thinking of transferring the Black Panther mantle over to you, said T'Challa. You are performing well given the incorporeal form and the ban from leaving the Namor Tunga, said Shuri. The incident with Njobo showed that my robots and holograms can be bypassed. It leaves an opening for our enemies, said T'Challa. Like Eric. Yes. Can't we compensate him for the damage done to his business place? I think it is the principle of an eye for an eye that he is following. He is presently scouting Wakanda, said T'Challa. What? Why is he still here? Njobo's sister exploited a loophole in the system. Did you rough him up at least? Shuri. Brother, you are too lenient at times. Eric's private plane was spotted in Aranzi, said T'Challa. He is connected to Soberk. Probably, replied T'Challa. Another thing, how long will we keep Okoye in the dark about Njobo's decree? As long as possible, she must not be too distracted at this time. I understand that the military police are still investigating her boyfriend's near-fatal shooting, said T'Challa. And the fraud case against her was temporarily stalled, said Shuri. I have placed a Dora Milaje from the merchant clan to guard Njobo. I am not even going to question the logic in that. What is her name? Nakia. I knew her about 3 years before our father's assassination. Does she remember you? Yes, but I feigned not recognizing her. Why? Because I had a crush on her back then. Today she is a woman who has to work out her loyalties. There is no need for me to add anything personal, replied T'Challa. 3 years before father died, I was most likely learning handstands in scorpion pits, said Shuri. No, you weren't. As I remember, little Princess Shuri was getting in tangles with balls of string, said T'Challa. I was not, said Shuri. Do you want me to get the pictures? Please do, because I know that they do not exist. After the conversation, Shuri located Eric and went to speak with him. Shuri traveled with the use of the Membek gift of anamorphing into a flock of black birds. The birds came upon Eric's car that was in the middle of Wakanda and they attacked it, which caused the driver to pull alongside the road. Shuri returned to her human form and she took Eric out of the car. I will be right back, she told the driver. Eric was the only passenger and she assumed that he was on a tour of Wakanda. Shuri, in her metallic skin form, took Eric by the arm to a few meters away from the car. Here is the deal, Wakandan or not, I have no qualms in cutting off your head and impaling it on a spike near the borders so everyone can see what happens to those that stir up trouble in Wakanda, said Shuri. We can reimburse you for the damages that were done and you can leave. You can't reimburse a dream. The business that your brother destroyed was my dream. The businesses my grandfather in collaboration with me were about to create for black folks was the dream that your brother took away. I am driving around this country and seeing what could have been if Wakanda had reached out to Liberia, a nation that was run by free African Americans. Wakanda allowed that place to crumble, said Eric. Wakanda has intervened in the past and a lot more was done under T'Challa, said Shuri. Where? This below the radar thing does not work, said Eric. Is that the reason for your visit to Soberk's country? You like his style of glorified support? Asked Shuri. It does not matter how he does it but that it gets done. Wakanda has concentrated on cutting off heads so much that it forgot that tangible support for people who looked like us mattered, said Eric. Chapter 3 Hell's Kitchen, New York. T'Challa, through a life decoy model robot in civilian attire, entered the diner that he once owned and operated during his personal outreach initiative. He later sold the business to the current holder. He went to the cashier and asked to speak with the present owner. Tell him that Luke Charles is here, said T'Challa. A few moments later, T'Challa was in the office. Dwayne Taylor aka Night Thrasher. How is business? Asked T'Challa. Great. I am finalizing a catering presentation for a prospect tomorrow, replied Night Thrasher. Glad to hear that, said T'Challa. I heard what happened to you recently, said Night Thrasher. As you can see, I have adjusted to the change, said T'Challa. I will not keep you further from your work. Feel free to drop by any time and I will tell the rest of the new warriors that their benefactor was in town, said Night Thrasher. T'Challa left the diner and he went 3 blocks up the street to an apartment building that was owned by his friend Sophia. T'Challa had loaned her the money to buy the building. T'Challa, is that really you? Asked Sophia. He explained his new situation as they stood in the hallway. T'Challa's next life decoy model appeared on the premises of a programming firm in Silicon Valley that was created by the Foster siblings. He had mentored them through the trials of running a business. When T'Challa finished the meeting, he settled back into Namor Tunga and reflected. T'Challa thought about Eric's accusation as reported by Shuri. The difference between T'Challa and Soberk's outreach strategies was that T'Challa had duplicated himself whereas Soberk had structured his efforts around him. If T'Challa ceased to exist, then the businesses he influenced would continue. On the other hand, if Soberk was destroyed, then his endeavors would collapse. Chapter 4 Uncharted Deep Space. Dr. Alex Soberk was born mystical while his contemporaries learnt mystical energy manipulation from texts. Soberk drew knowledge directly from his ancestors who were once the great mystics clan in his nation. So a disguised Soberk crossed time and space from Africa to the vault where Proxima Midnight kept her trophies of rare weapons. He scanned the items for tracking devices and he found several. He removed them with a wave of the hand. Then he stole the weapons and left a fiery note suspended in the air. The Spear of Bashan-Ga from Wakanda in return for your prizes. Soberk left and minutes later the mercenary Proxima Midnight arrived because of the security alarm at the vault. She read the note and knew of the Earth nation Wakanda due to recent multidimensional events. She had to go along with the blackmail because the trophies were her childhood dreams that developed when her handlers told her as a young girl that she would never be good at anything in life. She knew that a brother and sister protected Wakanda. She believed that they would know how to get the Spear of Bashan-Ga. As for the thief who might be a cosmic entity like the Collector, she planned to take revenge on that person. Proxima Midnight left the vault that was on the bottom of an ocean and she swam to the surface. She took flight and flew to high orbit where her starship waited. She piloted the ship through hyperspace to Earth and she located Wakanda. Then Proxima Midnight jumped from her ship while it was still in space and she flew to the largest metropolis in Wakanda. Chapter 5 An evacuation siren blared in Central City and Eric knew that Soberk had done his part of their deal with the creation of a diversion. Eric disconnected the power to the apartment that his grandmother had given him. He took clothes from his suitcase and placed them in the bathroom sink. The water from the tap unmasked the chemical composition of the fabrics and they took on the form of plastic explosives used in demolitions. Eric ripped off the bottom of his shoes and took out a vibranium smart suit and a signal jammer that were both miniaturized by PIM particles. He enlarged the items and gathered up the explosives, then he went to the Namor Tunga. He arrived at the bay and dropped his neck chain into it. He assumed that there were underwater guards at the Namor Tunga, so he used the Atlantis technology that he kept from his battles with the species. The chain morphed into a net shield and Eric dived into it. He swam from the shore to the Namor Tunga and he encountered robot sentinels. The net shield expanded and wrapped around the robots. Eric reached the glass vibranium dome that covered the Namor Tunga. He turned on the signal jammer that temporarily made him invisible to T'Challa's other robots. Eric activated the vibranium smart suit over his body and he put on a suicide bomb vest made from the plastic explosives. The detonators were improvised watches that he carried. He cut his way through the dome with vibranium claws. He went to the side of the Namor Tunga and blew a hole into the stone building, then he entered. Chapter 6 Okoye and the Dorum Mileage heard the explosion when they entered the Namor Tunga's courtyard and they raced inside the complex. Okoye saw T'Challa in his unique incorporeal form that a great entity cursed him with. He was surrounded by motion sensors as he piloted the Black Panther robots that fought Proxima Midnight. Nakia came down the flight of stairs that led to the second level. Okoye ordered some of the Dorum Mileage to help Nakia to secure that level. Only I can go upstairs. That is T'Challa's order, said Nakia. What is up there? Asked Okoye. I am not permitted to say, replied Nakia. Okoye glanced at T'Challa, a man cursed with imprisonment in the Namor Tunga. he would cease to exist if he stepped foot out of it. What could he be hiding? Thought Okoi. Then she remembered the explosion. Search the rest of the complex for the source of the explosion, said Okoi to the Dorum Mileage. No need. Panther, you destroyed my house, so I am doing the same to yours, shouted Eric as he came from the side and detonated the suicide vest. Meanwhile, in the central city plaza, Shuri and Proxima Midnight noticed that T'Challa's robots had gone offline in the middle of the fight. Proxima Midnight seized the opportunity and unleashed her full might on Shuri. One sibling down and one more to go, said Proxima Midnight. Next story, U-Bombay Prologue. Eric's vibranium smart suit glowed briefly from the heat after the suicide bomb vest went off. Are you done? Have you received the retribution that you came for? Asked T'Challa as he looked down from the raised platform that housed the control center for his holograms. Additional explosions caused the eastern wall of the Namor Tunga complex to crumble onto the force fields that protected Okoi and the Dorum Mileage as they stood inside of the ancient stone building. Yes, I am done. Justice has been served, replied Eric. You made the wrong choice. So now I have to put you in a cryogenic prison indefinitely for your crimes. What a waste of such an intelligent mind, said T'Challa. Don't give me that bull crap. What a waste of the lives that could have been transformed if you had not interfered, said Eric and continued, all you care about is yourself. You never had to work for or build anything from the bottom up, I did. So put me on ice if it so pleases the mighty Black Panther. But I will be remembered as the man who gave you what you had coming. You know so little of me, and they will remember you as the half-Wakandan who came home and got put away, said T'Challa. The dust clouds from the Namor Tunga turned bright red, then they converged and covered T'Challa. Eric used the opportunity to flee and Okoi sent the Dorum Mileage, minus Nakia, after him. Okoi and Nakia flanked T'Challa. I can feel my body reforming, said T'Challa. He looked at his incorporeal hand that grew flesh out of the dust. Then his Black Panther's ceremonial suit formed over him. The creator of all things misdirected you into thinking that he took your body when it was here the entire time, said Nakia. It is possible, said Okoi. T'Challa nodded and said, I have to return to Shuri to help her fight the alien intruder in the capital. Chapter 1 Kana, I need your sniper skills because T'Challa has left the battle. I will lure the intruder onto Ife Road, said Shuri. Ramonda overheard the transmission on her son-in-law's Kimoyo. May I help? Asked Ramonda. Sure, Queen Mother, replied Kana. Moments later, a shot rang out from Kana's sniper rifle. 2 miles away, on the main road into Wakanda's capital, the warrior Proxima Midnight was shot in the face with a neuron destabilizer which impeded her strike on Kana's wife, Shuri. Let's move, Mother, said Kana as he packed up the rifle. Ramonda was surprised by Kana's confidence and professionalism in such a situation. She got up from the ground with the spotter scope in her hand. Why are we moving? Asked Ramonda. The intruder has a starship over Wakanda that may provide intel to her on where the shot came from, replied Kana. Ramonda did not know much about this Jabari man other than T'Challa regarded him highly, to the extent that the Black Panther sanctioned Shuri's decision to put Kana on Ramonda's security detail. They were presently on a forested ridge next to the Queen Mother's residence. A hologram came up on Kana's Kimoyo communicator. General Kana. We have engaged the starship, but it is shield protected and it returned fire. Put a tractor beam on it and tow that ship away. Try to lock onto its engine signature in the event that we have to track it through hyperspace, said Kana. Yes, General. Kana then called the commando unit headquarters. Are the borders secure? He asked. Yes, sir. Any civilian causalities? None, sir. The shelters are filled and the property shields are on. The alien intruder seems to be an isolated case. Send me footage on the Namore Tunga, said Kana. The call ended and Ramonda commended Kana on his strategy. Thank you. I learned a lot from T'Challa, said Kana. I am sorry for how I treated you at first, said Ramonda. It was understandable, said Kana. I wish Shuri and you all the best, said Ramonda. Thanks for your blessing, mother, said Kana with a smile. Another image appeared on his Kimoyo. It was the Namore Tunga complex. There was a major explosion and half of the stone building erupted into a cloud of red dust. Seconds later, T'Challa emerged with the Dorum mileage. What caused the explosion? Asked Ramonda. Don't know for sure. At least my son is safe and he can return to helping Shuri, said Ramonda. Kana positioned his rifle for another shot at Proxima Midnight and Ramonda spotted for him. Mom, said Kana and drew his head back from the sniper scope. Yes, said Ramonda. Sorry, not you. My real mother just flew into Central City, said Kana. I don't see any aircrafts, said Ramonda as she looked through the spotter scope. Do you see the blackbirds to the east? Yes, replied Ramonda. That is her, said Kana. Chapter 2 Shuri faced a hard challenge against Proxima Midnight as they were evenly matched in agility, hand-to-hand combat, superhuman speed, and invulnerability. Shuri lured Proxima Midnight out of the city for Kana to provide an advantage, and it came at a crucial time in the fight. Something weird was taking place with Proxima Midnight's staff. It glowed and prepared to break into 3 components. Shuri moved quickly with the spear of Bashan-Ga and locked up Proxima Midnight's arms. Kana's neuron destabilizers landed on the opponent's face, but Proxima Midnight fought through the affects and lifted Shuri. Shuri countered by turning her body upside down and in so doing, locked her legs around Proxima Midnight's neck. Shuri twisted to the right, forcing her 8 feet tall opponent onto the ground. But it was not enough. Proxima Midnight's staff shot into the air and became 3 lances of starfire. The starfires turned around and went at Shuri. Shuri anamorphed into a flock of blackbirds and they scattered. Proxima Midnight rose and ripped the neuron destabilizers from her face. The starfire lances came to her hand and rejoined into the staff. Shuri rematerialized into her 6 feet tall and metallic skin body. Why do you want the spear of Bashan-Ga? Asked Shuri. You would not understand, replied Proxima Midnight. The spear is a family heirloom and is symbolic of my nation, but if you need it so badly then take it, said Shuri as she turned the spear's handle to her opponent. Tempting, but I will not feel satisfied unless I take it from your corpse, said Proxima Midnight. Another neuron destabilizer was shot into Proxima Midnight's face and she tore it off. After I kill you then I will go for your sniper. T'Challa's voice came over his sister's earpiece. Shuri guided the intruder to the Namore Tunga from the waterfront. We will deal with Eric and the intruder in one swoop, said T'Challa. Shuri was glad to hear his voice after his sudden disappearance in the fight. Shuri broke into a superhuman sprint to the bay. Her metallic form provided protection from the streaks of friction lightning that occurred as she accelerated. She ran onto the bay and did not sink because her molecules moved faster than the waters. Shuri sensed that Proxima Midnight had caught up to her on the right-hand side. Shuri, I am here, said T'Challa as he decloaked on the water in Proxima Midnight's path. He stood on the water due to the vibranium boots that he wore. T'Challa held a force field shield that the alien broke through and ran into him. The Black Panther applied a finger tap, with his superhuman strength, to the base of Proxima Midnight's skull and it paralyzed her. T'Challa somersaulted over Proxima Midnight and her body skipped across the bay until it sank. Shuri dived into the water and brought the alien to the artificial island that the Namore Tunga was on. Shuri embraced T'Challa when he got to the island. "How did you get back your body?" she asked. "Eric detonated bombs, but his act revealed the riddle that the creator of all things played on me. The Namore Tunga housed my body and sheltered the incorporeal form that was inside. I never guessed that the Namore Tunga needed to be destroyed for my physical and incorporeal forms to be reunited." "Where is Eric now?" asked Shuri. "Okoye and the Dorum Mileage are fighting him in the courtyard," replied T'Challa. Shuri's mind strayed from her brother's words to the presence of her mother-in-law on a tower that overlooked the bay. She looked in the direction of her mother-in-law, who was attired like Shuri in the Membek ceremonial battle garb and had metallic skin. The mother-in-law dispersed into a flock of blackbirds and they headed for the hills where Ramonda lived. "Shuri, are you okay?" asked T'Challa. "Nothing that I cannot handle," replied Shuri, still gazing at the birds. Then she gave Proxima Midnight's staff to T'Challa. Shuri took the prisoner to the serogenic department, where she was immediately frozen inside of a tube at the lowest degree possible. When the process was over, Shuri took a good look at her adversary. The alien was blue in pigmentation and her hair was the same color. The lips were pouted while the rest of the face was hidden behind a black helmet. "What compelled her to come after the spear of Bashan-Ga?" asked Shuri. She remembered her mother-in-law's apprehension that the Membek tradition may disappear with Shuri's sudden death, but Shuri saw it as a challenge that she was determined to overcome. Shuri imagined that Ramonda and her mother-in-law discussed the issue at that very moment. Why else would the mother-in-law break the Jabari self-isolation in the north to come to the capital? Furthermore, how did the mother-in-law know about the battle? Did she sense it? Was that sense another one of the Membek gifts that Shuri had to be taught? To get her mind off that train of thinking, Shuri contacted the Nova Corps Intergalactic Network for information on the prisoner. The Corps identified Proxima Midnight as a top-tier mercenary who collected trophies from her kills. Shuri was concerned that a random alien mercenary would target the spear of Bashan-Ga. It further proved that Wakanda's reputation had made the country a target. Chapter 3 Ramonda was elated when she saw her children together on Kana's Kamoyo projection. She went to her house to prepare for their routine visit after Wakanda was attacked. A flock of blackbirds descended in front of her and transformed into a woman. "Good day to the mother of my daughter-in-law. My name is Vi of the Jabari." "Mom," said Kana as stepped between the two women. Ramonda never expected to meet his family. She had so many questions with regards to the Membek gifts that Vi was transferring to Shuri, as it was customary in Vi's family to give the powers to the firstborn daughter or the wife of the firstborn son. The problem Ramonda had was that Shuri was a Panther clan woman who also had to abide to her clan's customs. The mixing of the two traditions seemed inappropriate to Ramonda. "Nice to meet you," said Ramonda. "I did not expect to visit but was forced to because of Shuri's near death today," said Vi, who was over 6 feet 5 inches tall. "I don't understand," said Ramonda. "During my training sessions with your daughter, I warned her that if she dies in these unwarranted battles, then the Membek tradition perishes with her. My use of the gifts ends when I give her the final lesson, which is near," said Vi. "I was not aware of this. And where did these powers originate?" asked Ramonda. "The origin of the Membek is sacred knowledge, and Shuri will have to guard that secret when I pass it on to her," replied Vi. "So what do you want of me?" asked Ramonda. "Can we chat as mothers?" asked Vi. "Certainly. My son and Shuri believe that they can change the world, which is understandable at their age. The two believe that they are enlightened. However, the Membek and the Black Panther customs are very distinct from each other. For instance, I am wearing my ceremonial garb that I must be seen in. The Black Panther uniform is similar in nature. Shuri cannot combine the two if she becomes Black Panther again because they are two different offices, said Vi. I understand the logic in your argument, said Ramonda. Look at it another way, you have 2 children and an extended family that can alternate in the Black Panther role. I have only Shuri. The risk to me in losing the Membek for good is greater for me than you, said Vi. What is the Membek used for? Asked Ramonda. Again, that is sacred knowledge, replied Vi. I see. Now that you have heard my point of view, do we have common ground? Asked Vi. Yes. Good. We have to get our children to end their marriage as a sacrifice for the greater good, said Vi. I gave my blessings to them already, said Ramonda. You did without even being given the honor of seeing your daughter formally married in a ceremony, said Vi. Mom, have no fear about Shuri and the Membek. You gave me the tools to protect my wife and family when you raised me, said Kana. Vi sighed and said, Strange fire, you always see things differently from others. Then she transformed into the birds and left. Why did she call you Strange Fire? Asked Ramonda. My mother is a mutant in addition to the Membek. She thinks that the combination led to me being physically and mentally different from my clansmen, replied Kana. I am sorry to hear that, said Ramonda. It is a minor matter, said Kana. Chapter 4. T'Challa was pleased that Okoye and the Durham Mileage knocked out Eric. With a heavy heart, T'Challa froze him in the serogenics chamber. Okoye wanted answers for Eric's motivation to attack T'Challa. I cannot reveal that as yet, said T'Challa. With all due respect, I thought that such information would be available to me as a member of your inner circle, said Okoye. This is a special issue, said T'Challa. Okoye did not push further. Your Doris and your security drills in the capital worked well today, said T'Challa. Thank you, said Okoye. I will still need Nakia for that other assignment, said T'Challa. Understood, said Okoye. As they spoke, T'Challa sent a cloaked mini-plane to the remains of the Namor Tunga to collect Nakia and the rogue clan elder that she guarded. T'Challa had an idea to resolve the clan elder's damaging decree on Okoye. It was based on the altercation with Eric. Later, he placed Proxima Midnight's staff in a military facility for observation. Then he visited his mother where he was told about Vi. He was unaware of the friction between Vi and Shuri, but since being told, he considered it a private affair for Shuri to handle. Afterwards, he teleported to Nakia's location. The merchant clan elder was in a mobile medical bay which healed his body from severe burns. T'Challa had him sedated. I should have told Okoye the truth, said Nakia. It does not matter at this point, said T'Challa. It does to me, that is why I will resign from the Durham Mileage, said Nakia. Where will you go? I have not decided as yet. Let a few days pass before making up your mind on the resignation, said T'Challa. And who was the man that blew up the Namor Tunga? A problem of my creation, said T'Challa. I see. Tell me something, would ritual combat be a good way of challenging a clan elder decree? In a situation like Okoye's, she can fight or choose a champion to fight on her behalf against a representative of the merchant clan. If Okoye wins, the decree is lifted, said T'Challa. Isn't that antiquated? Asked Nakia. The entire clan elder decree system is antiquated. I thought about removing everything, but speaking to you revealed how deeply rooted in the society the clan elders' powers are. But people must have a means of retribution for malicious decrees from the clan elders, replied T'Challa. I agree, said Nakia. I will give it some more thought, said T'Challa. It is nice to have you back in your proper form, said Nakia. I feel different and I am much more appreciative of it, said T'Challa. Liberia, Western Africa. T'Challa visited Eric's house to find the social projects that he worked on. T'Challa saw that his enemy Sobek was admired by Eric from the literature that was kept on the supposed great hero. Other newspaper clippings dealt with the water poisoning of a United States city by a private water company. While the mayor turned a blind eye, T'Challa decided to follow that up. Chapter 5: The Hidden Waterfall. In the Mystic Clan region, Wakanda, Kana and Shuri made love, then they rested behind the waterfall. It was their first month of marriage anniversary and they pledged Ubumbe to each other, meaning that they would not give in but fight for their marriage. Year 4086, Wakanda. The mystic Sobek opened Eric's cryogenic chamber and released him. "What is this? How are you here? Where is everyone else?" asked Eric. "You are centuries into the future and I was traveling through Wakandas to find a means of saving my friend from T'Challa's control." The Wakandans branded her physically, mentally, and spiritually. "She cannot clone her body, transfer her consciousness or anything else to escape the brand on her face," replied Sobek. "What does that have to do with me?" asked Eric. "Only the leader of Wakanda has access to the tools that will deactivate the brand. In this timeline, Wakanda has returned access to rulership through ritual combat as a means of recapturing the warrior ethos that the country once identified with. Today is challenge day. You will win the kingship and give me the means of freeing my friend," replied Sobek. "Let's do this," said Eric. Sobek teleported him in a sphere of fire to the arena for the battle. "I am standing outside of normal time, so my assistance in the fight is limited," said Sobek. "I am still going to win," said Eric. Hours later, Eric sat on the throne as the king of Wakanda and Sobek was given the means to free his friend Raven the Spy Master.